I wanted to talk a little bit about process, but I've been basically welding since I was 20, flunking out of school. Skipped a class, an art class, for a bunch of weeks in one semester, my junior year, and the instructor said, "Tom, I want you to learn how to use that welding equipment over in the corner." And so I struggled through that, pop, bang, you guys know. All the torch noises and smoke and soot and whatever, and finally learned how to do it pretty much on my own. And then after graduation, I got a job in Miami working for a company that was doing a lot of copper work. And one of the things that they couldn't do was sculptural requests. So they did a lot of custom coffee tables and custom, lamps and fountains and that stuff. And so I got into doing a lot of brazing with copper. Like this piece here was the first one I did after moving from Miami, from that place. And so it's very old, so am I. So I do a lot of my work with oxyacetylene welding, the tanks, which are always more expensive in January every year. I use a torch here called the Cobra. DHC 2000, which I found after working with a Victor torch for 36 years, and this thing has been magic. I can do so much really fine detail. This little guy.
Oh, wow.
And he's got fingers. So in process here, from a design standpoint, people like to talk about, do you draw stuff first? I don't generally draw stuff first. If I have a commission that I have to draw, and I taught drawing for a couple of years at ACC, so I can do that. And I like doing that, but I don't do it for the fun of it. I just do it when there's money involved in it usually. So my process is really spontaneous. And like I'm working on a scene on this big lintel over here. It's the top of a gate memorial piece that I'm doing for a couple that lost their son back in December. And it's going to have crystals in it and some new agey kind of looks at stuff. Thank you. There's the drawing. And the drawing is really, I'm sorry, everybody's with. And the fourthen is not a word, but it was a word that the son used ever since he was like 7 years old. They would go out on hikes and stuff, and he would say, "Fourthen unto the horizon." Yeah, but like these, okay, so the candle holders have brass cups on them, and depending, like the ones that are copper are all over here, and copper is the base metal for the brass or the bronze. It's the root metal, if you will. And so you can combine the root metal copper with the root metal of the brass with brass, or you could use bronze for that process if you like bronze better. But all of those are copper-based metals. And you need a flux in order for the material to flow. Otherwise it gets kind of gooey, and it gets a skin over it actually, and it won't allow it to flow. But if you put the flux in there, then it'll allow it to flow. You have to use gravity. You can use big pieces and melt down a little bit of the diameter of the big piece, whatever. But it also will join to steel, like the one up top there. So you have to get the steel to a temperature at which it's willing to receive the brass. So brass melts at 1760, the steel melts at 2850. A lot of difference in there, 1,000 degrees. If I get the steel to the molten temperature and I put brass on it, it's good, does this violent response. But if I get the steel to 1760 and then I apply the brass to it, it will flow around the steel. And it's like the crystals, or the grains in the steel get agitated, right, by the heat, spread out, make space. And then I flow the molten brass into those spaces, and then it cools and locks it up. Okay, see? Yeah.
How far can you go with the torch?
I'm sorry, with it?
How far can you go with the torch?
How high? Oh, well, it'll do, depending on the tip size, okay? Some of these,
Oxygen and acetate?
some of these tips are very big. So I can get maybe 3,500, 4,000 degrees. And these tips are like, on this particular torch, these tips are like a venturi, where it goes in a big opening and comes out a small one. So it builds velocity.
What is the trick for the tip not to melt?
The tip not to melt. The direction of the gas. The stuff, the flaming stuff is going one direction, right? And if I get this involved in it, it's gonna, it could melt. I got one that I ruined by sticking it in the thing, and I just cut it off and used it for something else. But anyway, and that's a whole other part of it, this invention and our ability to adapt. You know?
Experience.
Yeah, through experience and through different tools and having the right tools. So I don't want to go on and bore you guys, but I do appreciate from the bottom of my heart coming together.
Thank you very much.